This evening's broadcast is brought to you by Home Guys Home Services. Hello, and thank you for joining this broadcast of Port Angeles News. I'm your host, Arthur Wojnowski. We begin this broadcast with news from the city of Sequim. The Sequim City Council heard updates on the 2018 Service Festival.
We are looking at scheduling those neighborhood projects that are like community-led and public, and then also those private homeowners that need a little bit of assistance. So we're still scheduling those, but we're also looking at logistics and the type of planning that we need to do in advance. So some other events to mention, I think Candace kind of mentioned a little bit, and Pam, we've scheduled the June 5th and 15th Service Fest music programs from 6 to 8 p.m. So we have two bands. The contract isn't signed yet, so I don't want to tell you quite yet who it is. But we'll be releasing that pretty soon. Another thing to talk about is the Day of Color coming up on April 21st, the Beautiful Day project that's coming. Habitat for Humanity is leading the way to, I think you've all received emails about the color scheme for the administration building. It's a kickoff to start the planning for infusing color throughout the community when we do that on June 5th. So hopefully we'll be using some of the city colors. And then coming after that, Haley will be planning with a group of a subcommittee from the Arts Commission and students as well to prepare a mural that will wrap around the building on the northwest court of that building. So it'll be exciting, and we'll be meeting about that. We are also planning to activate the Emergency Operations Center. So some of the planning efforts that we're putting together, we're thinking about in such a way. So Ty Brown actually has been great help from Public Works, looking at different projects that we're going to do, like some kiosks around the city, some paths through the community, and pricing out those programs early and finding out what we need for either donations or what we'll need to purchase, things like that. Another thing that's been going on, you probably noticed that our PIO, Barb Hannah's been really busy sending out newsletters. The last few newsletters have had information about Service Fest, news going out in the also the newspaper, but also KOMP and KSQM. Colleen Robinson's been on the radio promoting the event and explaining the program. On March 3rd, Colleen Robinson and I were in Portland, Oregon at the Habitat for Humanity regional event or regional conference, and presented on our neighborhood revitalization and Service Fest program, and talked about this as a model for other communities. So it was an exciting moment. And Peter Kagiyama, last but not least, will be here on June 4th to kick off the event. And so all of the planning for getting him here and helping with Day of Color has been made. I think I covered most of it. Joe, do you have anything to add?
Just one item that for the RV caravanners, we have 20 caravans arriving from Habitat for Humanity's program with 33 caravanners, and they'll be located, we're working on putting in temporary, or it'll be able to be accommodated on a longer term basis and for other events if need be, but infrastructure for water and electricity for those caravans behind the band shell next to Bell Creek. So there was some talk a while ago that they were going to locate near the Blake family property, but it's logistically better and easier to accommodate them behind the band shell next to the creek for a temporary basis.
We will update you on the two bands once more information is available. We do have an update on the Sequim Pickleball Court project. Let's hear what engineer Matt has to say.
This first picture is just meant to be a teaser. I'm going to come back to it and kind of share the story here and what's happening in this first picture. But for now, I want to show you this picture. Here's a retaining wall being built, And mostly I want to show you this picture because of the soil and material that's there. That is what's known as beautiful squim potato, right? That's what we worked with to build the pad for the pickleball court. Then there's this photo. So in this photo, this is a photo of some soil that's laying underneath our pad that is silt, clay-like soil. That's kind of this layer that's down here, this lower layer, this kind of consistent looking, slick looking stuff. The problem with that soil is when you run construction equipment on top of it, or if you try to pour concrete on top of it, it deflects. Right? So this was a problem that we encountered last Tuesday. Just before the contractor was getting ready to put down top course, we do what's called a proof rolling, where we take like a fully loaded truck, and we run it across the pad, and we look for soft spots. So that green shape is the soft spot we found. And this isn't uncommon for this time of the year when there's been a lot of moisture, especially when you consider the winter we had. That's just moisture that made its way down to the subsurface and caused some of those silt-like clay soils to become saturated and get soft. But it is a problem for moving forward. You have two options. One is you suspend the contract for a couple months and let it dry out before you can get back on top of it and work. Or you make a decision to dig it out and replace it with suitable foundation material. So this photo is the picture of myself and the contractor. No one's particularly happy in here because everybody knows that it has to be dug out, right? We want to keep the contractor moving. The option of suspending work is not a very good option because you face a delay claim. In this photo, I'm pretty upset. I don't know if you guys can tell how upset I am. This is me realizing that we're dipping into that 5% contingency that we authorized, right? So just to show you how upset I am. You can almost read my lips, right? And it's not Scott saying live long and prosper. Anyways, that's the material that goes back in. That's the suitable foundation material. And here's the schedule. Time is money in construction. The most important thing about last week was we kept the contractor on schedule. So if you study the schedule, their next task was to be able to place fence posts, which they started today, which lines up when they were planning to begin the work. So that's my pickleball update. It's still early. That photo of me being upset, it's not uncommon to have to dip into your contingencies. But on this one, I felt like I was using all of our timeouts in the first quarter. Still early in the project. Generally, you like to hold on to that contingency for the duration of the project. So, going forward, we'll continue to manage the work and watch it closely. And if there's a need for additional funding, because on this one, we only authorized a 5% contingency rather than our standard 10%, I'll come forward and I'll let council know of that. Questions?
Have you already dug it out then?
Yes.
All dug out, all
Yep.
done, all good?
Yep. Yeah, on that, there's not time to get pricing from the contractor. We do what's called time and material or force account work, where it's, okay, give me your excavator and 2 dump trucks and 3 guys and let's start digging it out. And we just track their time and the equipment time. And we pay costs for the material, and the contract has agreed upon multipliers for that type of work. So.
Matt, just, real quick, is this gonna be designed such that, I see there's lighting and installation and electrical and all that type of thing. Is it gonna be designed where this can be used like in the night, 24 hours a day, that type of thing?
There will be electrical conduit and receptacles brought to the court. So in the future, there could be some type of retrofit included like a lighting system.
Even with the snag, the pickleball project is continuing on track. We move on to Sequim City Council hearing testimony from city staff regarding a code revision and how it might impact subdivision road access.
So I know we've talked about this a couple times in the past, but what I want to do tonight is give you kind of the Reader's Digest version of it. And I want to actually look at like a particular site or like a case study so we can kind of walk through the code revisions and get a better understanding of it. So I'm going to zoom into a potential subdivision that exists now that maybe will be expanded in the future, and we're gonna kind of talk through how this code might impact this particular subdivision. So the code, as it stands now, requires 2 points of access, and that can be satisfied by this splitter island. No real understanding where the splitter island came from, but it basically consists of two 20-foot drive lanes and then a 10-foot center landscape buffer area. And throughout SQUIM, you'll find these splitter islands in place, and a lot of subdivisions did not have to do 2 points of access. So what we did with our code rewrite, we looked at what the adopted fire code requirement was for 2 points of access, and it's 30 dwelling units, or what we might call 30 parcels. More than 30, you need to have 2 points of access per the fire code. And that's the case with our proposed revisions. You can have 30 lots and meet the subdivision, or the 2 points of access with the splitter island. But as soon as you have more than 30, you have to put in a second access point. So for this particular subdivision, let's just kind of pretend that all you see is 30 parcels there, but there's this wide open vacant land right here. Developer comes in and they want to put in a subdivision. They're going to be adding that 31 parcel, if you will, to this single road. So part of their requirement is going to be they need to find a second point of access, right? There's one nuance that we should talk through. The fire code and our proposed code requires that the second point of access have a certain length of separation, and to determine that separation, you measure kind of the longest diagonal of the parcel divided by 2, and that's your length requirement. That's the minimum length of separation you need between 2 access points. But our code has sort of a built-in variance process in that if there's some type of topographic issue, that distance can be reduced to something less than half the longest diagonal. If the applicant prepares a discipline report prepared by a professional engineer, and it's submitted to the Public Works Director for a review, and the Public Works Director finds the findings reasonable, those findings would then go in the staff report that goes to the Planning Commission and ultimately goes to Council for approval. So there's sort of this transparent process. This particular subdivision might actually run into that. There's a large ridge right here along this entire edge. So they will have a topographic challenge. To make matters potentially more complicated, Priest Lane's a private road to the north. It's also in the county.
Deputy Mayor Todd Miller pointed out issues with the language and voiced his preference for the variance process instead.
I move to adopt ordinance number 2018-001, amending section 17.32.110 related to subdivision access with the following change. Delete if the overall dimension of the property to the end of the underlined section short plat or subdivision, and replace it with if the overall diagonal dimension of the property, if the required separation distance is not possible due to a geographic feature, the applicant will have a right to seek a variance to be heard in accordance with the SQUIM Municipal Code and heard by a public, by a hearing examiner.
The City Council also approved putting the Transportation Benefit District resolution back on the ballot. The cost of putting the resolution back on the ballot will be around $5,000 and will continue for another 10 years if approved. This will allow the continuation of the tax benefit district without interruptions if passed. The city will need to have pro and con statements from city residents. If you would like to be a part of writing the pro and con statements, contact the City of SQUIM. the City of Sequim adopted Resolution R2018-4 with WCIA interlocal agreement.
Another great thing about the pre-membership program is we don't really have to do anything. Staff get oriented by WCIA, counselors can get oriented by WCIA. We have access to all of their available training, and we really actually get to start to go through those checklists and those to-do lists that will get us in good shape for compliance with, their true requirements after we join starting January 1st. So it's really just a win-win. It's also really just the final sort of administrative detail to initiating this relationship.
Okay.
Just a question for the city attorney. I'm sure you've reviewed this. Do you have any reservations or problems with the agreement at all?
No, it's their standard interlocal that they use for all of the members. They have been very easy to work with, I would say, so far. So I don't anticipate any issues. As a matter of fact, I'm thrilled that we're making this change, and looking forward to a lot of their trainings and their offerings that they have. So in terms of the language of the interlocal, no, I don't have any issues. It's their standard
My
membership.
problem with win-win situations is that there's gotta be something wrong. I was looking at this and I can't find anything wrong.
Well, it's in their best interest to have strong pool members. So it's in their best interest to bring us into the program with our ducks in a row.
Yeah, I would just add, you may recall that we're going from an insurance pool where we're one of the biggest cities to an insurance pool where we're in the lower third in terms of size. So this is gonna stretch us. We feel like we've got more sophisticated things going on here than a lot of smaller cities do. And I've had the pleasure of working with all three insurance pools in the state now. And the last city I worked for in Issaquah, we worked at WCIA, and I was really impressed as well with the services. So looking forward to working with them again. But I've warned the staff, they do audits every year, and when they come through and do an insurance audit, it's a lot harder than the audits we've been doing. That's the experience we want. We're asking for it, but you'll probably hear us grumbling at some point, and just remind us of that. It's gonna make us better.
And from our perspective, because we know that's coming, that's what makes this pre-membership thing so exciting, so we can start getting access to some of that information now. We know that there's some things that we need to do better or that we would like to do better, and by having access to that information, we can start working on incorporating some of those things now. So we're pretty excited, or at least I am.
And now let's take a look at weather for the week. Friday, cloudy morning giving way to sunshine, high of 51 and 41 overnight. Saturday, cloudy morning giving way to sunshine, high of 50 and 38 overnight. Sunday, cloudy morning giving way to sunshine, high of 49 and 40 overnight. Monday, 50% chance of rain, high of 45 and 40 overnight. Tuesday, cloudy, high of 50 and 45 overnight. Wednesday, cloudy, high of 50 and 45 overnight. Thursday, 60% chance of rain, high of 50 and 44 overnight. Construction of the new sewer main along Sunnyside Avenue in Sequim is complete and in service. It is being tested and should be in service next week. The project did encounter utilities that had to be rerouted and connected to other locations. Still to be completed are the sidewalks, curb ramp improvements, paving restoration, and final paving. Expect 15 to 30-minute delays. The post office driveway along Sunnyside will be closed through April 2nd. Access to the post office during the closure will be from East Maple Street driveway. The city anticipates the work to be complete by the end of April. The city also began sidewalk construction on North Blake Road. The project places new cement curb and gutters, ADA accessible curb ramps and driveways along the west side of North Blake Avenue between Washington and Oak Street. Work will be performed between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. Expect sidewalk closures and detours. Drivers can expect lane shifts and shoulder closures near intersections. The road will remain open with minimal delays. If you have any further questions regarding road projects, contact the Sequim Public Works Department at 360-683-4908. Guy Coleman Event Center ribbon cutting ceremony was held yesterday to celebrate the completion of Phase 2 kitchen renovation.
Projects like this, but Joe did a very amazing job. He was working, as my understanding, I think he was studying at the Evergreen to get his master's in public administration, and this was one of his projects. So he was in my office fairly frequently, reminding me about the importance of this project. Not that I needed to be reminded, but when you're writing a capital budget, there's a lot of things that are happening at a very fast time. Projects come in and out, but with Joe continually reminding me and knowing a little bit of the history that Candace had spoken of and the need to do this remodel to make this a really, maintain it as a really functioning facility in the community, it was a easy thing for us to do to be able to include that in the capital budget. So it's actually the first time I've been here, and it's very exciting to look at it, both the outside and the inside, and then the kitchen for what's going on here. So I'm glad to have been part of the partnerships that help bring dollars. I think at the end we brought about $450,000 out of the state capital budget to make this happen. So it's pretty exciting to see how those dollars are invested and what a great asset this is going to be for this.
Sequim City Council had a spirited debate before passing a short-term resolution that allows Waste Connections to terminate trash services to Sequim residents who are not paying their trash bills.
I'm sure you're familiar with what it is. It doesn't guarantee payment except for eventually, right? When somebody goes to refinance or sell their house or whatever the situation may be.
But we invest our money at 1% now. If we ask for a market value rate, we're actually getting a better investment.
I'm going to look to my finance director for the money stuff.
I was having a sidebar with Barb. What was the question?
When we put a lien on a property, can we include an interest rate?
Yes.
So we can include a fair market interest rate, which is going to be higher than typically we get on the investments we have now.
One of the things that I wanted to comment about the lien process. Again, this is one of the reasons why we were waiting on this topic. It's a longer term policy issue for council to think about it. When you're putting a lien on somebody's house, that impacts their ability to sell it, makes things very messy. There is a significant amount of procedural I's that you need to dot and T's that you need to cross in order for the lien actually to be effective. That's a lot of there's a lot of administrative work in actually filing a lien. But I think the bigger policy question here, you guys, that we want to put before you is, do you want to be a city that liens people for unpaid garbage bills? I think that is a broader question for policy to contemplate. Is that the type of city that we want to have? And I think it's really important for all of you to weigh in on, is that the kind of community that we want? So that's why we were going to tuck the lien process and options into this longer term discussion. We really just wanted to clear up the short term issues, clean up the, get a council action so we can clean up this contract frustration. That's really what we wanted to do tonight, is focus on the short term.
Could I get a number, just a guess, of Sequim residents who this would apply to? You know, is it 5 or 500 or?
Current,
Please come up to the podium, yes. And
Thanks.
And I would just remind council too that if this, you know, again, we are trying to have the lien process be a longer term policy discussion. And if council decided that, they want to go down that road, that's fine, but I would just remind council, we're trying to find some short-term resolutions for DM right now that isn't involving a lot of staff time. You can certainly repeal this resolution when you are more firm in your long-term policy discussions. So I just wanted to make sure that council was clear on that.
Yeah, I would be for the city just paying for it if there's some way we could do it and just without, I don't know if it would be part of our public works budget to keep the city clean. If we could pay for it out of that somehow, that would be fine.
Well, I think the bottom line is waste management should not be stiffed on their bills.
Yes.
But the homeowner should not be able to get away with not paying his bills. However we resolve it, I don't really care. Those are the twin goals.
Well, with a third goal of not having a bunch of trash pile up at the homeowner's house.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's
third
the
goal.
most important part of this discussion.
That probably is, yeah. But I thought that would be understood.
So would you please address, let us know your names and who
Chad Young.
you're representing, that type of thing, please?
Chad Young, I'm the site manager for electric vehicle disposal.
Thank you.
Currently, over the night, what we call blockades, the 90-day blockade, we have 109 customers with the value of, we're just a hair under 39,000.
So I'd like to say that I'm not opposed to passing this as long as I know that there's going to be a long-term discussion later on. And I'd also like to point out to the other council members and to city staff that there are people who live in Sequim where supposedly we have compulsory trash service who don't arrange to have trash service. So those folks I know take their trash to places like Walmart and the parks and just drop it off in a bin. So the idea of it piling up, maybe that would happen in some cases, but perhaps it would just be disposed of in another way. But as a temporary solution, this doesn't bother me at all. I agree.
Yeah. So is there any further discussion on this? Where do we want to go? In other words, I totally agree there's at least three parts to this. Obviously, the one being we need to assure that the disposal people can in fact stop service or stop, that process when they need to and cut off the persons. And as far as dealing with what might be piled up, I believe that's our problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to propose that we approve this resolution, but with the understanding that city staff will address the other twin goals to prevent trash service from building up and to make sure that the homeowners or the recipients of the trash service pay their bills, whether it be via a lien process or dunning or whatever. So at this point, I move to approve Resolution R 2018-10, authorizing Waste Management to terminate service for non-payment.
Second.
Upcoming events. Saturday, March 31st, Welcome Home Vietnam Vets, being held at 216 South Francis Street in Port Angeles. The event starts at 1 p.m. Tuesday, April 3rd, AmeriCorps will hold Mayor's Day Project at 9 a.m. at Memorial Park on the north end of Francis Street. Wednesday, April 4th at 5 p.m., Peninsula College will host a student town hall with Representative Derek Kilmer. You can RSVP on Derek Kilmer's Facebook page. Just click on the Events tab and RSVP. Thursday, April 5th at 6:30 p.m., Sunland Series Cascadia Subduction Zone Earthquake, the threat to Clown County. The event will be held at Sunland Golf Course Clubhouse Ballroom, 109 Hilltop Drive in Square. If you have any particular topics you would like us to cover, or if you have announcements that you would like us to share, please contact us at info@portangeles-news.com. This concludes this broadcast of Port Angeles News. Until next time.